Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Kenny Cars and Coffee. And we've got a lot to talk about today. I got a whole bunch of stuff laying all over the place. So let's kind of get down to the beginning. I'm Kenny Brown, and if you're just joining us for the next hour or so, I'm going to try to share with you some of what I've learned over 40 plus years of professional motorsports and building top-notch street cars, track cars, and of course championship-winning race cars. And I'm here to answer your questions, talk about what you'd like to talk about, like to know about. The questions we have today all come from the Speed Therapy Society. If you're not a member, it's worth joining because that's a really great group of guys and gals. And they're trading a lot of information, pictures, and then we're posting. There's a lot of resources we're posting in that group. Today's subjects is, now this comes right from your guys' questions. Reducing wheel hop, the inherent wheel hop in SN95 and 550 cars. I'm going to touch on that. On the tech part, I'll talk about Caster Plus. Remember, I tell you guys, put as much caster in as you can. I'm showing how we did that for the Fox and SN95s, plus my little trick on adjusting your camber for track and street. And then along with that, somebody's asking about SN95 coilovers. So I do have a Kenny Brown / Strange Engineering coilover kit. And I'm also going to, I keep showing these to you. Well, I'm going to dissect it a little bit and show you the individual pieces so you get a better idea how it all works. And then the questions. And of course, you can always send in questions too. We'll try to get to your questions that are coming in live. I got some like housekeeping stuff to take care of. Of course, Carrie gives me all my notes. Okay, YouTube. Okay, this is the second week in a row that we're simulcasting live in HD to both Facebook and YouTube. So I think you guys need to give a lot of love to Carrie. She slayed the technology monster the second week in a row. And you probably noticed the picture's a lot better. And we're also on YouTube simulcasting. This is pretty cool. If it's 2 weeks going, we're not going to make any mistakes. We're going to keep doing it. So for the YouTube fans that are in here with us today, if you want to get notifications on what's coming up, we might for like Cars and Coffee, or if we do like a special webinar or a special session, there's a little bell. You can click on the bell, and then click on the subscribe, because then you'll get all the information, and like the video button. And then for Facebook people, please like what we're doing. You can click on the bottom, the live broadcast. Please share this with your friends. We need to, the more people we can get, the better we're going to be, because to keep doing this, we really need to kind of grow this community. So please share this with your friends. Anybody you think that can gain information and knowledge from what we're doing, invite them. We'd love to have them. And for the replays, as you know, we've got the replays for the Cars and Coffee in the Kenny Brown YouTube channel. And speaking of replays, I got to go to page 3 for this. Okay, we've been doing, by popular demand, we've been doing kind of a blitz, replaying the Transform Your Driving Experience workshop. And today is, today's bonus day 6. That's a really good one to watch. And so watch it when you can, because as of midnight tonight, they're going down forever. You're going to say, well, why are you doing that? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm doing this for you guys. And if we kept it up there indefinitely, then all of a sudden, all of my competitors are going to be watching. And, I don't need to they copy me enough on all my products. So I don't need to have them copy on the things that I know that I teach you guys. So it's coming down, kaplunk tonight. And then the Speed Therapy Academy, we talked about that. I'll touch on that a little bit later. The registration will end on Monday for that. It starts August 4th. And again, it's a 12-week course, 8 to 10 sessions a month. The Tuesday session we're going to call immersion, where we'll take one subject and kind of dig into it. The Thursday is consulting, where we'll pull somebody out of the group. I'll do some consulting with them while everybody else listens. And the next week we'll do somebody else. That way I feel we can really kind of put everything into the real world. And it's real world experience, not just theory, because that's why I dropped out of college. It was all theory and really didn't mean much to me. And then we're going to have some industry experts on our masterclass. that'll come in on another day and do like a half-hour presentation on something that their technology or products, or like Doug Vanderbrink is going to do on driving. You don't want to miss that. He's a top-notch instructor. He's like the top at the Porsche Academy, and he's driven just about anything. Guys like Steve Sharp from Forge Line, Rick from Bear. We've got a couple more, but they'll be on there. And the thing about the Academy is that all the sessions will be recorded. They'll be in the library resources, and they will be there for a full year. So if you join the class and you really can't, it's summertime, you can't get to all of them, don't worry. They'll all be recorded. They'll all be in the library. And that library will be in existence from August of 2020 to August of 2021. So you got a full year to go back and look at it. You also get this kind of nifty, this is a prototype shirt. The real one should be here this week. Speed Therapy Academy Polo. And then you'll also get your own Speed Therapy Academy notebook with dividers, and you can divide the information up as you see fit. Also, we're going to throw in one of these tablets. This is a tire temperature tablet. To get one of those in your package too. So, I mean, the Speed Therapy Academy is things we've talked about. We're going to go deeper now, and we've only got enough time to just kind of talk about things on the surface, and there'll be some examples of that coming up. But the Academy, we're going to go deeper. I was actually supposed to talk about that later, but I kind of got ahead of myself. Artwork. We've got this is another artwork of from my collection. It's Dan Gurney at Spa, the only American car and driver combination to win a Formula One race. It's the Westlake V12, and if my memory serves, I think like the engine has barely made the end of the race, but it made the end of the race and he won. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then as far as artwork, we have Jim Bowden shared a piece of artwork that he has. It's Red GT40 at Le Mans when they soundly beat the Ferraris. That's kind of cool. Like it almost looks like it came from my collection. But through the summer, we'll have more of my pictures up. We actually went over the storage, and we took the other pictures we had back. We put some more pictures over, so we'll be rotating them out. And I've got some pretty interesting ones. With the Dan Gurney one, the 24 hours. I got a really cool picture of Dan Gurney driving a picture, not an art of driving a GT Cobra at Le Mans. Okay, so we got the YouTube, we got the Facebook, we got the replay, we got Jim Bowden. We're going to talk about wheel hop, caster plus, upper strut mounts, and then your questions. Remember, you can send in questions. We'll try to get to them what we can. They come in like really quick, and sometimes Carrie loses them. So don't worry if you have a question, we don't get to it, it'll be filed. And that's how I figure out the subject matter is based off of your questions. The first question is Mark White wants to know the pros and cons of McPherson strut versus double wishbone. Okay, McPherson strut, as everybody knows, that's what's in the front of a Mustang. The lower control arm, a spindle, and a strut. And it's simple. It's simple. It's easy. It's inexpensive, and it's light. The cons, the geometry of a stock one is not that good for handling. I mean, they're great for driving, for tire wear and all the things you need to do for a regular street car. But for performance, it's kind of lax. That's why on my front grip kit for S197s and also the front grip kit for the SN95s, which can also be used in a Fox, I changed the geometry. I make a whole bunch of geometry changes to kind of make the McPherson strut as good as it can be. Now, double wishbone, also called an SLA, that short arm, long arm. It's just what it is. There's wishbone on top, wishbone on the bottom, short one on top, long on the bottom, and then there's an upright. I call double wishbone, it's not spindles, but uprights. Now, the advantage of them is you can get a lot better refinement on your geometry, just because how it works. The con is it's more complex. It costs a lot more. But here's a misnomer. Just because it's a double wishbone does not necessarily mean it's going to be a good double wishbone, because it all boils down to geometry. And geometry is something we're going to learn about in the Academy. But to give you some context, in 2009, we were testing at Putnam Park with I was engineering the Speedworks FR500 S cars for the Mustang Challenge. And my late son, Paul, flew in, and was the test driver for us. But I also brought out M69, who a lot of you have seen. That's a 2005 SEMA car that looks like a wide body 69 Mustang. Anyway, that was a very early version of the current suspension we have for S197's rear grip kit, front grip kit. And his comment to me was that front suspension drove every bit as good as just about all the double wishbones he's driven. See, so it doesn't necessarily mean, just because double wishbone doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It's all about geometry. A lot of the aftermarket double wishbones from Mustang work off the stock spindle. And I've looked at the geometry in my computer program, and it's really hard to get good geometry off of a stock spindle. That's why I'm working on a double wishbone. Actually, it's been sitting on the shelf for years. It's probably a year and a half out for the S197s. There's also a narrow track version for the S195s, but we're talking. Don't get ahead of yourself. It's a year and a half out. But the whole trick to the geometry on that is it's got a unique neat upright, because the real geometry in a double wishbone starts with the upright. The size, the length, everything works around that. So that's why the geometry that we're going to do, again, year and a half out, don't get ahead of yourselves, is based off of the late 90s Riley J and Pratt & Miller Trans Am cars. So it's good. It's really good. In the testing that we did a few years back on prototypes, it's amazing. And then we had a customer that I like custom built one for SN95. It works like a dream. So it's not just, if it's just a double wishbone, it doesn't necessarily mean if the geometry is good. It's just a double wishbone or SLA. So that's kind of like on that, and like, you know, in the academy, we went deeper into geometry and how all that stuff works. And then Noel, I love this question. Noel wants to know if we can supply details and information on a roll cage intrusion bar that opens for us old guys to have a 86 Mustang. We might have a few of the SN95 street cages, which is 6-point, the main hoop, rear hoop, and then the low bars get in and out. But if it's for like a real race car with a cage, something I did on Ruby, my track car, because we had a lot of media people and other people in and out of the car, the upper intrusion bar on the back, it was on kind of like this slide thing. You kind of click it down and the bar would swing out. So you had all this room to get out. And when you pulled it back, it was spring loaded and bam, just locked into place. It's NHRA approved, so it's a pretty good piece. I'm gonna have to check and see. I'm gonna call and see if we can still get those. We haven't got one for a couple of years, but I'll check and see if we can get one. If you're interested, call in or send an email to info@kaybrown.com. So yeah, that's exactly what I did. And then the race cars we're going to be building next year, some are going to have that swing out intrusion bar just for old guys. I should say gentlemen racers that have achieved girth over the years. How about that? Okay, let's see. That's Mark. Here's where we want to get in the coilovers. Will wants to know about, he's going on his SN95. He's thinking about going to coilovers, and he wants to see what will happen going around the Glen. It's probably a fun street car. But I'm looking to do a few HPDE events. What coilover spring rate would you suggest to still give me a decent ride quite around town and some aggression through run on a few spirited laps? Boy, that's the easiest question of the day. Here's your front strut. Now, this is a strut that Strange Engineering builds for me, custom, based off of my dynos, my shock dynos. Some of you have been with us have seen the book. It's got that thick of all the shock dynos I've collected over the years. I've got a really specific range of what I like to see in the shock absorber. And I went to, when we were in Chicago, I went to Strange Engineering and I said, can you do this? And they walked me back to Dimitri. I showed Dimitri the dyno charts. He's like, you do this? Sure. So he's done, we do a both front and rear. Fronts only come double adjustable. The rear is double and single adjustable. So I mean, that's the shock package you want to use. Now, as far as spring rate, when it gets down to that point, you and I will have a conversation on exactly how you're going to use the car, what tires you have, what your driving experience is, kind of all those things. And then I'll figure a spring rate. If I had to guess off the top of my head right now, maybe 450 in the front. But like I say, the nice thing about coilovers, you can change them out. It's really easy. And I keep talking about all the pieces. So I'm going to show you the individual pieces. Now, at the very bottom, I talked about the thruster or torsion release bearing. That is just really thin, and you can see, there's the camera. You can see it's a whole bunch of little bearings. What that does, it sits under the spring, because the spring does these little things. And if it's not on something that spins, then it's going to start. It just starts eating up things. And it's kind of cool with the Strange, though. It's also got bearings at the top. Look at how easy the whole thing spins. The bearings at the top, bearings bottom. So that's on the bottom. And then, of course, we've got the mainspring. Now, the Strange takes a 2.5 ID mainspring. Our JRZs take a 2 1/4. And you can kind of see the difference between 2.5 and 2 1/4, both in ID and then OD. And then on top of that comes the spacer. And the spacer is just kind of a double-sided thing. And then on top of that goes the helper spring or tender. So you can see I can compress it with my hands. The whole purpose of that is when you go to higher spring rates and shorter, you have to go to shorter springs for higher spring rates, because if you have a high spring rate and a tall spring, the thing doesn't compress. So to get that all working and make sure the spring stays in place, we put this little helper spring at the top. Now, back a long time ago when I was doing formula cars, anytime we jack the car up and do work on it, and we set down the ground, we take them out and walk around and hit every shock until it went bong. And if you hit a couple of times, it didn't go bong, you just wait. The driver goes off, first bumps the hit, then it'll go bong. That's the spring just dropping into the seat. Well, by doing helper spring, that doesn't happen. It stays in place. Now, and this is our Caster Plus. I keep telling you guys, for when you're doing alignment, get as much caster in the car as you can. For the SN95s and Fox, what we did is we came up with Caster Plus. Now, it's hard to see because you're not seeing the whole thing, but what I've done is we've taken the top mounting of the shock and moved it all the way back as far as it will go. I found out by taking the adjustability out and just pushing it all the way back that we gained another sometimes 3/4 degree of caster, which is what you want. Before this, before we did these, I think in AGS2, that's my advanced geometry suspension system. AGS2, we had what we call fixed strut, and we actually used the onion heads from the SVT Mustangs and moved them all the way back, and then we just came out with this, and so it's nice and quiet. We use urethane bushings, top and bottom, instead of a rod end, because it's kind of dampens some of the NVH noise, vibration, and harshness. Now, here's a little trick. I need to show you guys. I keep telling you how to do track setup and street setup. Well, what you want to do, this is the Fox, and I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's say this is, you go to the alignment shot. There. You go to the alignment shop, and let's say that's your street alignment. What you do is either on here or on the body, you make a little mark where the bolts are. Okay, and your Sharpie. Everybody says, well, what will we do without telephones? Well, there's another. What will we do without Sharpies?
Can you do me a favor?
What?
I have a banner on the bottom, so you have to hold the part up just a little bit because people can't see it. I'm trying to get rid of that.
Okay. It carries the banner on the bottom, so I'll hold down here so you can't see it.
I'll try to get rid of it.
So anyway, you make that mark, and then you go to track and you drop it all the way in. You put all the negative camber will take, and then as we've talked before, then you start dialing the camber out based off of your tire temperatures, which are really critical. And you just kind of back it up, and then when you get finished, just put it back to the street setup, and you drive home. So that way you don't have to get the car realigned every time you go. So that's kind of like a little on the coilovers. And yeah, when it gets time, we'll have a conversation and I'll come up with a spring package. The nice thing about coilovers, if we start out with a nice spring package for the street, that's also can work on the track, and you want to do go faster, your driving improves, changing the springs, just pop one off, another one off, another one on. That's what I like about coilovers. It's easy. It's easy to tune. Okay, and Hirschberger wants to talk about oversteer, understeer corrections with coilover rebound. That's kind of interesting, really interesting subject. Now, as we talked about before, understeer is when the front of the car hits the wall first. Oversteer is when the back of the car hits the wall first. It's the easiest way to explain it. As far as, I'll give you like basic adjustments, but without knowing your spring rates or shocks, I'm just going to give you generalities because in big picture, when it comes to tuning a car at the track, you've got a lot of things that you can do. Let's face it, you've got rebound on the shocks, you've got bump on the shocks, and if there's 21 adjustments on rebound and 12 adjustments on bump, multiply that out. How many different combinations of shock adjustments can you have? Then you've got sway bar, you've got spring rate, you've got tire pressures and alignment. It's all those different things you have to kind of work with to try to figure out how to make your car get better. Now, this is the kind of thing that Speed Therapy Academy, we'll spend a lot of time on just how all this works. Just briefly, like on my track car, Ruby, I had 285s on the front, 305s in the back, and I was using the front tires up more than the rear tires. So I put a 295 in the front, went up 50 pounds on the rear springs, and fixed it. That's the kind of thing we'll get into in the academy. We'll kind of dig down all the different things you can do to kind of set the car up at the track. But as far as real basically, if the back of the car is loose, you just start putting in rebound a little bit of time. If the front is missing grip off the corner after the apex, just put rebound in a little bit of time. But it boils down to what you have to let me know what kind of shocks and spring rates you're running. Because that's the only way to really figure out how to do that. So we've got through, I'm just kind of whizzing through my stuff here. There's another big one that came up. I don't know where I put it. Somebody wanted to know about, the inherent, the wishbone, side intrusion bar, coilovers, understeer, and the, here, I put the question on the front page. It's the inherent wheel hop in SN95s and S550s, an IRS wheel hop. It's, in a way, it's kind of complex and simple at the same time. Now, for people who've been with us for a while, know when I talk about the spring compressing and uncompressing and rebound controls the uncompressing, in inverse bump controls the compression. What happens when you've got a stock Mustang like a Cobra, SN95 first? What happens is everything's mounted in rubber. They have to make it soft and quiet for the street. And when you get into it and you pop the clutch or you try to go fast, that tire is going to grab the pavement, but as it does, it's going to move everything. Like back when I was a kid, we had cars, Camaros and Mustangs had leaf springs, and what happened when you try to really take off hard, the axle would actually wrap up. Would kind of wrap up with a torque, would twist the axle, and that would create wheel hop. And they came out with a really simple thing, traction bars, and many of you probably seen them, just bolts the housing and then forward to where the spring in the front mounts. So it moves up and down with the spring, but it will not let the spring twist up. That's called traction bars. On SN95 is a lot of things going on. And first of all, it's really hard to get good anti-squat in double wishbone rear end, an IRS rear end. On when we do the geometry upgrade on the rear carriers for Cobras, we kind of fix a lot of things. We change a lot of the geometry, which helps that. But before that, we just need to start thinking of, okay, why is the thing bouncing like that? Well, first of all, soft bushings are letting things like wind and unwind. And for those who've been with us for a while, I talked about the spring. The spring gets compressed, and then the rebound adjusts how quickly the spring gets uncompressed. Well, when you get wheel hop, I mean, you got the spring doing this thing. So first thing you got to think about, well, there's not enough shock absorber, and we'll get to that in a minute. But when it comes to stopping the wheel hop on the SN95s, we got a really simple starting point. The first starting point is this is the forward torque brace. Turn around, Ken. And this replaces the factory one's kind of a hollow bar loop that actually does deflect. This doesn't deflect. This is rock solid. And then on top of that, we put our aluminum diff bushing. Now, I went to put one of these together for you and discovered that we just sold out. This one, we had like a couple left on the shelf, and they went this week. And I went to build some more, and we're out of the big washers. So you're going to have to imagine, okay, use your imagination. And there's in between these little washers, okay, there's a big inch and 7/8 diameter washer. So what that does, that actually creates some adjustability and a heat sink. So that's one value is you remove the rubber, which is soft, and replace it with something hard. The other thing is like you can get urethane front bushing kits, and they're fine. They'll work. But the thing about what I've developed is with all these little big washer, little washer, big washer, little washer, that if you it looks like just like a heat sink, and that's what it becomes, a heat sink. So it helps pull some of the heat out of the differential. And everybody with a IRS car that's been on track knows heat is a problem. But the other cool thing is that would have to be how it would normally go. The differential would sit here, and you kind of stack all the bushings up on top. But a trick that we do is on the cars I do, I actually reverse it. Okay, I put all the washers on the bottom. Now, why do I do that? Because it takes the pinion angle from down here and it pushes the pinion all the way up. It pushes the front of the snout all the way up. So it increases pinion angle. I can't remember what year it was, but we had a customer that came to us that had a Cobra, and he had the Ford dealer, I don't know, multiple times. And they replaced drive shaft and all this stuff, but he still had a driveline vibration. We put one of these in and put the nose of the differential way up in the air, went away. So he had like 3 or 4 trips to the dealership. They replaced a bunch of parts, and we replaced one part and it fixed it. So that's kind of part 2 of the 3-part starting solution. We call this like step 1 for IRS. And the next one is the rear steer kit. Now, what we talked about before is an IRS car, when you go around the corner, you get to a certain point of lean, both rear wheels turn the wrong direction. That's why it makes the back of the car so loose. With the rear steer kit, we actually take and move the inner pickup point all the way down to the bottom, which helps reduce the roll steer. It doesn't take all of it out, but it helps reduce it. When we do the geometry improvement on the carrier, we move this down even further, which pretty much takes the rear roll steer out. And what that does, it just doesn't let the wheels do this. And so we're 3 different things. We're improving the strength of the forward torque brace. We're getting rid of rubber bushings for the front differential, and we're taking some of the roll steer out. And our drag race guys tell us that this really helps. They can actually, on the dyno, when you accelerate, you can actually see the wheels do this. And they say when you put the rear steer kit on, it doesn't go as much. So those 3 things are like your starting point to help reduce wheel hop. From there, a really good spring and shock package is kind of critical, especially good shocks, because what's happening is the spring is completely out of control. The hopping makes the spring go out of control. So you start taking the things that move out. We eliminate it on the front of the differential. Now with a good spring and shock package, we're putting some control in the up and down. And then you can also put like urethane bushings in the lower control arm, which is okay. Now, personally, we have a coil-over lower control arm that it's like a racing lower control arm. It's an A-frame, and we convert to a coil-over shock. rear coil-over shock, which, you know, we just talked about. We can adjust the spring rates as much as we want. And then that comes single and double adjustable. Most people only need single adjustable. But you've got that good shock in there, and then you have a rebound adjustment that you can even slow down the decompression of the spring. So there are some things that help reduce wheel hop on SN95. Oh, also when we do the geometry, we put as much anti-dive in as I think is safe in the back of the car. So, you know, our IRS cars really don't wheel hop, but then we don't drag race. So, I mean, looking at the reality, if you go drag racing, you should have a live axle. That is the only way to really go. IRS cars are not made for drag racing. You know, everybody does it. Now, on the 550s, you've got the whole carriers moving around. And there's one simply, of course, springs and shocks. Remember that. But if you stabilize the carrier, you kind of lock it down, that'll take a lot of the movement out of the back, and that'll help the wheel hop, and then get a real good set of springs and shocks. You know, control the movement is the best thing. So there's a couple of quick things. Again, in the academy, we'll get a lot deeper into these subjects and talk about the geometry in there. So that's kind of like you know, the wheel hop. It's inherent. You're right. It is inherent. There we go again. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee, and we're spending the next hour. I'm trying to share with you my extensive experience and knowledge from over 40 years professional motorsports and building great street cars, track cars, and I've also got probably hundreds of thousands of miles of driving track cars and race cars. And I won a whole bunch of national championships. And I'm also joined today by, as you know, my trusty toolbox. Now, that has been with me for all 40 years, and that has been to just about every major racetrack in North America, including most port in Canada. So, I mean, it's like, I'll never get rid of it. It's somebody said if that toolbox could talk, and you know that's probably a really true sense of. I have another sign coming up. Yeah, I forgot about this. This was on this one too. How many of you went through the Transforming Your Driving Experience workshop the first time? And let me know how many are watching the blast reruns. And remember, today's the last one, and they all go away at midnight because I've done this for you guys. Don't want to do this for our competitors. It's just that simple. If you want to learn more, that's what the Academy is about. Because just like we talked about everything we talked about today, I've hit the surface. And the Academy will do it. That's what, don't call it teaching, we call it immersion. We're going to immerse ourselves in a subject and talk about it. And it'll be interactive. It'll be like on Zoom, so that it'll be just like a meeting. And for those that don't know Zoom, it's like it's a virtual meeting room. You know, it's you know, I'm on the screen. I can see everybody's face across the top that are joining us, and it's interactive. It's kind of more intimate and interactive than just like Facebook Live or YouTube Live. So it's trying to create the best environment we can to help you guys learn as much as you can. And it does have a fee involved because it's the only way I could do it and make sense. And we try to make it really cost effective. So it's no more than what a track day would cost. It's $450 a month. A track day mostly will cost you that. I know at the Shelby Club Road America, they charge $500 a day, I think. But you know, you multiply that out by 8 to 10 hours a week, and always be more than that. No, 10 to 12 hours a week for 3 months. That's a lot. That's a lot for almost no money. But it is limited. I guess Monday is the cutoff if you want to join. If you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, if you don't know if it's for you or not, please call in. We can talk to you. I can just tell you that if you want to learn, this is going to be, I'm doing the best job I can to really dissect issues and problems and things like talked about earlier. I mean, you get to go to the track and you got bump adjustment, you got rebound, you got sway bars, you got alignment, you got tire pressures, all these different things. And if anybody's a mathematician out there, just calculate how many different adjustment possibilities there are if you got 4 shocks with 21 clicks of rebound adjustment and 12 clicks of bump adjustment. Somebody figure out how many different combinations there are. I can tell you it's a whole lot, but I mean, there's anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about more how to make all this stuff work together. And a lot more, we talked about the geometry. We'll talk about geometry in there, and pretty much everything. McPherson strut and double wishbone. That'll probably be a whole subject. And again, we'll talk about how the geometry works and does it work in some cases. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty good. I originally wasn't that whipped up about it, but Carrie kept talking to me and telling me that I could really impact people and they can learn a lot. And the whole idea is you go to the academy, you go to the track, you're going to show up like the pros from Dover. That's an expression we had like a long time ago. You're going to show up like the pros from Dover, and you're going to know what you're doing. You're going to be fast. You're going to make the right adjustments. You're going to mostly make the right adjustments, because we'll talk about adjusting a car is guesswork. You're guessing that this is what the adjustment's going to do, but once you have theory in the back of your head, you can think things through, and you've got your notebook. We talk about notebooks, and you after you make more and more adjustments, you're going to learn more and more about your car. Like with me, I'll go to the track and we'll get the tire temperatures set first, and then a couple laps and click a rebound there, take a click out there. I mean, I just know what to do, boom, like that, and it's done. So hopefully I can get you guys to that level through the academy. I'm looking over to see, she's not staring at me, so I haven't missed anything. So that's a good thing. I think, let's see, I should repeat this. For people on YouTube, I got to read this. I can't remember all this stuff.
Well, we answer questions first. Do you want to do that? Or
okay, I can answer questions first.
Get into something more interesting than our jibber jabber. Okay, well, one question about the academy, and then we're going to get into other questions, is Bob Jones, who's joined the academy, is wondering if you have the schedule yet, or what you're planning on covering. Can you just give a brief outline of what you're planning on covering? Yes and no. And I say yes and no. I've got some general things lined out. However, for those that have already joined the academy, know the very first step is I have a 30-minute, always runs around 30 minutes, Zoom interview with you. So we're like looking at each other, and I want to learn more about you, your car, and most of all, what you want to learn about. Because I'm going to take all these and I'm kind of going to go through and try to, what you got. It's like what you want to learn about. I'm not going to, if I teach you something you don't want to learn about, you're going to be bored. So the core curriculum is going to be pretty much based off of what comes in. And, go through the same thing, the performance platform, chassis, suspension, wheel stars, brakes, which is the most important thing. We'll get into some talk about tires. We'll talk about shocks. We'll talk about geometry. And brakes. I mean, that brakes are probably two nights worth of brakes. I'll probably have a better idea by the end of next week after I've kind of interviewed everybody that's going to be in the program. And for the people that are in the program, we'll kind of put that out just as like, okay. And it's going to be a sort of a living document. It's going to be, because I'm not going to be like in concrete. If we need to change something, if people are interested in something that's not quite there, then I'll make a shift and we'll talk about that. So it's going to be, the curriculum is going to be what you want to learn about and what I think you need to know. So maybe the end of next week, I'll have something closer to that for you. That's a good question. Mm-hmm. Carrie's been asking me the same question all the last 2 weeks. What's your curriculum? I said, well, I got this kind of thing laid out. Here's week 1 through 12. But there's a lot of empty spaces. But it's all the important things, and if the main thing is you tell me what you want to learn about, and I'll figure out how to get that in the program, because that's why I do the Cars and Coffee and answer these questions. Is what you want to learn about. Okay, moving on. Okay, questions. I wasn't listening to you. Did you talk about S550 IRS wheel hub? Yeah. Okay. I mean, the simplest way, because I'd love to do a new IRS package for the 550 cars, because personally I really don't like it that much. But the amount of investment that's involved in a clean sheet of paper, new rear suspension is pretty extensive.
Maybe a few years out, we'll might look at that. But in the near term, you do the easy things. Get the stabilizer for the carrier, so you lock that in place and get a good spring and shock package. And that's your best first starting points. So what's the next one?
Okay, Joel, I'll read this one. I don't want to keep going back to the Academy, but this is a good question. Joel Neal said one of his concerns about taking the Academy is he has a S550 and he only wants to learn about that car and setup. He knows that, when we talk about older cars, he's not sure he would get enough out of the class.
Okay. We're going to talk about all the cars, but the theory that applies to one car will also apply to the S550. Okay. If you do this to an S197, it's the same thing you would do to a 550 car. Now, the geometry of 550, we're not going to get into geometry because I'm not really changing geometry in that car yet. But as far as spring, shocks, brakes, driving, all that stuff, that the theory is almost universal. And we had somebody wrote in or sent in a comment that he has a Jaguar, and he's just loving this because he can see just how we talk about other cars, how he can apply it to his car. So I mean that's the best I can tell you. The other thing is that we're talking about coming up sometime later this summer is doing like a live webinar on one specific platform. Like we'll take SN95/Fox and I'll do like 1 or 2 hours on that. S197, same thing. S550, the same thing. But if you want to know the theory, how things work, and how you can do better at setting up your car and also driving techniques, that's going to come out of the Academy.
And I see it like talking the theory and all that good stuff. But when it comes to the group coaching and you're really talking more or less one-on-one with Kenny within the small group setting, you're going to be able to dive deeper. He's going to be able to help you specifically with your car and your setup, or however you're using your car, whatever your goal is to accomplish.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point. Like on the Thursday is going to be coaching. We'll take one person and we'll just talk about their car and what they want to do with it. And the nice thing is everybody else will be listening, so they'll pick out little nuggets that it makes a lot of sense. So you would actually be on one of the Thursday nights. You'd be like the feature, the star of the consulting night.
Oh.
But I mean, if that's honestly, if you don't think it's going to be that good for it, then just wait until we do like a 1-day webinar on the 550s. But I mean, if you want to learn, how everything works, it's a good place to go.
Okay, so we're back to questions. Brad. Okay, Brad, I'm going to tattle on you. Okay, you were talking about Crown Vics earlier. You must have mentioned something about the Panther. Did you mention that earlier today? I don't always listen
not
to
today.
Oh, okay.
In previous weeks I have.
Okay, well, for some reason this came up because we've been talking to a bunch of Panther people. He said, Kenny doesn't know this, but Kelvin and I would drive the Lounge Lizard around Indy with the lights and sirens on.
Here's how I got into making high-performance Crown Vics. I can't remember the year. It was the old platform Crown Vic, so maybe 99, something like that. And Car and Driver came to me, and they wanted to create a high-performance Crown Vic that looked like a cop car. Okay, so they did all the cop car stuff. I mean, it came in and had like the bumpers on the front and the light on the A pillar, and it was all blacked out. It looked pretty coppish. And I did the performance part. We actually blew the first motor up. We supercharged it, blew the first motor up, but you learn from everything. So we ended up, and I was working with some of the guys at Ford with this. We ended up with a supercharged Crown Vic that made pretty good power. We redid the suspension, wheels, tires, and it was really cool. The article was supposed to start at 2-page. They ended up making it 6 pages, and they called the car the Lounge Lizard. Well, from that we also put Brembo brakes on it. From that we started doing a bunch of Crown Vics, and then when the Marauders came out, 3. We shifted from Crown Vics to supercharged Marauders, and anybody that's ever seen one of those Well, you talk about an amazing car. I mean, we had one customer that just reveled in the fact that he could blow off just about anything on the street, Corvettes or anything else, with 2 baby seats in the back. I mean, that was his. That's what got him going. So yeah, and actually I got an inquiry. I think somebody wanted to know about Panthers. If I can build a Panther, I think I need to get back to them on Monday, maybe.
Yeah.
I need to know more about it. Is it possible? Maybe. For more people that wanted to start, doing performance things on Crown Vics, let me know. Maybe we could look into that a little bit deeper.
Okay. So you had no comment about Brad or Calvin driving the Panther around
No,
Indy?
I think I'll just leave that slide.
Okay. Wendy, she has a number of questions. She's, will the double wishbone work with the subframe control arms that she just bought?
No, it's a whole different design, completely different. Like I say, this is a year and a half, 2 years out. But it will be for S197. It'll be a bolt-in. But like I say, don't get your underwear not waiting for this. I mean, just think of it like next year sometime.
Will it be just for S197 or will you go S550?
No, it'll be okay. That's a good question. It's going to be S197. But I also did a narrow track version for the SN95 back when I was on my health hiatus for a friend of mine in Chicago, and we've got an extra set of parts for that. So at some point we can do that for the SN95/Fox. But somebody at Ford told me that the S197 K member comes very close to bolting into a 550. So next year sometime we'll look into that maybe. But don't hold your breath. But when it happens, it'll happen. I got one other product that I've been working on for years that we're going to be introducing later this summer. And the reason I can't talk about it, we're applying for a patent, and the attorney says you can't say anything about it. So later this summer, once the patent gets filed, you guys in the Speed Therapy Society are going to be the very first people to find out about it before it goes public. So that's another good reason we are. It's something worth. It moves suspension theory way further. Anyway, I can't say anymore. I'll get in trouble with the attorney.
And that's a good time. If you're not in the Speed Therapy Society, it's a private Facebook group. So just search for Kenny Brown's Speed Therapy Society and join the group. It's a fun group to be involved in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing that's where the other whose was it? Jim Bowden's picture was of the GT40, which is real similar to my GT40 pictures. I thought was awesome. Mine are mostly front-on shots. That was kind of a side shot. I thought was really cool.
Okay, we also have a question about the GT350. He just went. He just got a GT350. What are your plans and upcoming upgrades for this chassis?
Pretty much the same as everything else on the 550. The thing about the GT350s, if you've got the Magnerized suspension, you're kind of in a box as far as forward progression on improving the car. I don't have my numbers in front of me, but just roughly, I think the GT350 comes with a 200-pound front, around a 200-pound front spring, and next under that, I'll have to look it up, but I think the R has a little higher spring rate, maybe 220, something like that. In the aftermarket, the only springs I can find for a Magnerized shock absorber is a 200-pound spring, which is, if you've been with me for a while, our street touring is like 350 front. And I always talk about front because the rear spring is dependent on the front spring and what the car is doing. Because with coilovers, I can adjust that. Just our touring package is like 350. Street performance is 400. Intermediate track still on street tires is 500, 550. And advanced track with good tires is 650. Most of our track cars are running the 650, 400 combination. And you're thinking, well, that's a whole lot of spring. But for my late son Paul's World Challenge GTS Mustang with Pirelli slicks and the JRZ Motorsport shocks, we would run between 850, 950 in there sometimes. So you can see that the more spring you put in a Mustang, the faster it gets. But also the window for for your mistake window starts shrinking. So if you got a soft spring, your mistake window is this big. You got a really heavy duty spring, your mistake window is that big. So that's why we always start at people soft, and then maybe year after year we'll add something in unless they got some experience. I mean, that's why I pick spring rates for people.
But the GT350 is pretty cool.
But the GT350 is really cool. So if you got Magna Ride, in fact, we just talked to somebody this week, the GT350, and from what I've been told, you can unplug the shocks and nothing bad happens. So that's why we've got some really good shock packages for the GT350s, all of which are higher spring rates and come from the factory. I think we've got like a basic street performance package that's around 400 spring rate, and then we've got the JRZs, which I can adjust the spring rate. We're just installing a set on a 550 right now, and it's got a 650 front spring. So I mean, one a good spring and shock package is one. You've already got kind of as big a sway bar as it gets. Two-piece slotted rotors are a big upgrade. That reduces weight and helps clear the brake dust and the gases, and they cool better. Wheels and tires. I know you've already got good wheels and tires. I think they might come with really good tires. I don't remember, but I mean that's kind of. I don't have big plans for that car because they're so good from the factory. But there are things you can do to make it better. Springs and shocks are one. Two-piece rotors are another, and obviously different pads if you go to the track. And then you've already got good wheels, good tires. I mean,
you're cooling.
Cooling. Thank you. We've had people with GT350s have cooling issues. Well, as luck would have it, we developed a triple pass radiator, the triple thick for the SS197s. We also have it for the 550 cars. It's just a complete drop in OE replacement. It's like I've showed one in previous weeks. It's really thick. We had a customer up at Road America that dropped his water temperature on track almost 30 degrees. So we've got a good radiator. That's kind of important. The other things you do is you put a higher flow exhaust on there, although the exhaust sounds pretty good from the factory. Like I say, I mean, they're a really good car to start with. That there's, major things would be like really major, but there's a lot of really good little things you can do to improve the car. Cooling, two-piece slotted rotors, really good spring and shock setup.
Okay. So here's our next one. And if anybody has any other questions, we have a couple minutes left. We want to make sure Ken's getting paid for the hour you're putting in.
Yeah.
You worked the whole hour.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Thank you.
Let's see. Do you lubricate those bearings? I know you said lubrication will collect dirt on the coilover threads.
No. I don't put any lubrication on them. I mean, they're pretty. They're pretty squished down. Somebody sent us a set of shocks to go through, and they had lubricated. They put some like grease or something on these, and I mean, I got to tell you, it was just it was a sand fest. I mean, it was just loaded with grit and grime. I do not. If somebody wanted to put some lubricant on there, I would only recommend something dry, like a dry lubricant. That wouldn't be petroleum based and wouldn't collect dust. But I mean, this is sandwiched so tight that I don't put any lubrication on there.
Let me get back to my other page. I'm trying to be more efficient and save it.
If you got coilovers and you're doing your nut and bolt check, and you're going to start out with at least 2 cans of brake clean, that's your big friend. Always blast off the threads on the coilovers. Don't let dirt accumulate on them.
Okay, Wendy has one more question. Also looking at helper springs on the coilovers, is there any benefit to a dual rate spring setup?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dual rate spring setup, I'm not a fan. When you go to a dual rate spring setup, instead of this being like a 12-pound spring rate that compresses, a dual spring would have something like 150-pound spring up there. But if you're running like 150-pound spring up there, you need to be running like 1,000-pound spring below, because there's a formula that you can look it up on the internet. You need to
calculate the final spring rate with dual springs. You kind of multiply one and divide it by the same thing you multiply it by. And anyway, the spring ends up being a little softer, and a lot of that is for for street performance to improve ride quality, because you got a softer rate spring to start with, then it gets into the bigger rate spring. I'm not a fan. I just like linear springs. On the S550s, the JRZ they don't have a coil on the shock, which we're kind of looking at that. They've got a dual spring sits where the old spring was, and the bottom spring is 150 pounds, and the top spring is 1,500 pounds. So, and that works out to like a surprisingly low spring rate with that 1,500 pound spring on there. So, yeah, dual spring rates. Some people use them. Like I say, you can look up the formula for calculating the spring rate. But I just like. I mean, I like to know what the spring rate is, no matter what. Boom. Dual spring rate almost gives you a variable type thing. I just like linear springs. Give me one spring rate and let it work. Okay.
Okay. We have one more from Wendy. That's sort of related, I think. Can you rebuild tractive shocks?
Rebuild what?
Tractive shocks.
Tractive?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay. I don't know if it's maybe a autocorrect or whatever. Okay.
I know that the strange engineering shocks we get can be rebuilt. Also, the JRZs can be rebuilt. Unlike like normal off-the-shelf shocks. I mean, these are rebuildable. Although, I mean, they'll go a really long time. Here's a little tip for shock absorbers. If the shock absorber is just weeping a little bit, just like damp around the top and the seal, that's not a problem. But if it gets to be more than just a little bit of dampness around and starts like needing more moisture than that, then you really need to get a rebuild, get the seals changed. But just a little bit of weep, a lot of shocks will just weep a little bit, and it'll just be damp around the top, and you'll notice it because there's a lot of dust connected to it. That's why we don't lubricate things, the wrong things. Okay, got a few minutes left.
Okay, yeah, we have a couple more questions, and this one is, okay, this is getting into IRS. Brad says, can you give the basic alignment specs for an IRS rear suspension? Okay,
I'll give you full alignment specs. In fact, we'll post up my alignment sheet, Carrie.
Okay.
In the resource thing.
We might already have it there. If we have it there, maybe we can post it right now. So.
Yeah. I'll give you the whole alignment setup for a Cobra, Mustang Cobra. On the front, maximum caster. That's why I use Caster Plus. And then I've added for the street, about a degree, no more than a degree and a quarter negative camber in the back, and also a 1/16 toe out in the front. That's about on an alignment machine minus 0.25 to minus 0.3. On the back, we'll typically run both street and track minus 1.2 negative camber, and then toe in at the back, opposite. So toe in a 1/16th or 1/16th of an inch toe in, or plus 0.25 to plus 0.3. So there you go.
Okay.
And okay, why do we do a real quick diversion? Toe out at the front helps the car turn in better. So in at the back helps the rear IRS track better.
Do you want to go through the S550 and the S197 alignments or not?
They're all pretty much about the same.
Are they? Okay.
You can do a little more initial on the 550 cars. Caster is always the most caster you can get. I mean, that's pretty much the same for all the cars. I mean, it's, alignment's alignment.
Okay, and Brad has another question. What axles are you using on your IRS setup?
What? What
axles?
Axles?
Mm-hmm.
On the SN95, we'll either use the 0304 Cobra axles, or we'll get like the heavy duty axles. I can't remember the name of the company, and that's also for the 550 cars. You put any kind of power into a 550, you really need to get the 800 horsepower axles in the back. So, and you make a lot of power, you need to have better axles than an IRS car.
And Rich Cottrell makes a comment to Caleb, who has a 350. Also, Brian West just bought a 350.
So really?
Yeah, so he's interested in this information too. In fact, I'm going to talk to him later on today.
Okay.
He said to call us about Maryland. It's an amazing car. We've done a number of 550s, and our premier car is Maryland. I think you've spoken about that before, but you did some really cool upgrades to that car.
Yeah.
Actually, $70,000 or $80,000 worth. So there's a lot you can do with the S550 platform.
Maryland was 2017, so it was the last of the, I guess it's the Gen 2 Coyotes. We did everything. We did the JRZ RS Pros, which are double adjustable remote canister. We did the Mundo huge, tremendous brakes in the front, but 15-inch rotors. And on our Mammoth brake setup, the calipers are like 14 inches tall. I mean, that's how big the calipers are. The brake pad is bigger than your hand in the front. In the back, we put the six piston 15-inch rotors, 6-piston calipers in the back. Oh, the rear rotor is 15-inch by 1.25. The front rotor was 15-inch by 1.4. And we put the 6R race calipers on the back. The suspension, we did a front sway bar. I don't like doing rear sway bars on 550s because you turn too many things off. They're loose enough the way they are. We put forged line 19, I think 11 on the front and 13s on the back, 305s in the front, 325s in the back. We did headers, exhaust. We put the GT350 intake and throttle body on. We put some comp cams in it. Big radiator, oil cooler, diff cooler. I know I'm missing stuff. Oh, aero. We had a big aero package. We had a big aero package on that. I mean, the car was it's a gorgeous car.
If you want to see it, there's good shots on KennyBrown.com, but we also have a microsite. It's KennyBrownCars.com that has some really stellar pictures of Maryland on there, which is your GT4 RS.
Yeah, that's the GT4 RS.
So I think
no, that's a GT4 RS. Yeah. No, it's a GT4 CSR.
CSR. Okay, sorry.
Okay, the IRS cars are CSRs. Like the 99 to 04 Cobras were CSRs. The live axle cars were RS. It's GT4 RS. So GT4 CSR.
Okay, and I think that rounds it up. Before you say anything, I'm going to say a few things. If you guys can just try to share, there's a little share button there with friends next week, or also just invite your friends. It would be great. We'd like to have a few more people on, and a lot of people. What's interesting though about Facebook, you may not have too many people on at the time, but a lot of people watch the replays. So if you haven't watched, if you have friends that want to watch a replay, just send them the link.
And then also send your questions in through the Speed Therapy Society. I mean, that's how I come up with the subject matter. And the whole idea is to give you guys good information of what I've learned over a very long time at huge expense in both time, effort, and money. So if I can save you a little bit from making a mistake that'll cost you money, that's a good day for me.
And the Transform Your Driving Experience workshop replays come down tonight, so make sure you
Transform Driving Experience workshop. This is the last day. They come down. I don't want all our competitors watching and taking notes. This is just for you guys. Okay. Whew, we got a lot done today.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Okay. Well,
are we doing it next week, or
no,
are you taking a break off?
I'm taking next Saturday off. I need to get ready for the academy. Be sure, like I say, Monday's, I think, the last day to sign up for the academy. Any questions, just call in. And you can actually call in over the weekend. We've got a lot to do, so we're going to be here. If you got any questions, and then send your questions in for next week to the society, and I'll figure out next week's curriculum when your questions come in, and I'll finalize the curriculum for the academy once I talk to everybody and find out what you guys want to learn about. So, okay, well, that's it for this week. I hope you learned something, and that's kind of what I'm here for. So, not next week. We'll see you the week after.
Second Saturday.
The second Saturday of August, we'll be here. So, until then, keep the shiny side up.